That question, because you know, when my kids were growing up, of course, they wanted to dress up for Halloween and they wanted to go out with their parents, and I always would say, I'm sorry, I'm not dressing up. And they would wonder why, and I said, because I dress up for a living, right? So it's not like it's a special event for me. So I don't really have a fantasy of who I would dress up as, but quite frankly. I do remember once my ex-wife asked me to go to a Halloween party with her, and I dressed up as Elvis. But that was a long time ago when I looked more like Elvis.
Aww. Next question, let's get to the other side in the green checkered pattern.
Hi, I was wondering how it was to work together.
Well, we actually never got to work together.
Never did.
Isn't that interesting? I recorded alone with no one other than the director and the musical director. But Chris and I never worked together at all. Can you believe that?
We've really actually gotten to know each other really well doing these cons, and we just have a great time together. Ken is the best.
Chris is the best.
Great question. You have something growing out of the side of you, miss.
Oh no, not another one.
My name is Mary, and what is your favorite holiday?
Well, my favorite holiday is Halloween. And it really is. I'm not just saying that because when I was a kid, I lived for Halloween, probably because I got to dress up. And you got candy, you got cake. And at my grade school, they always showed a movie on like the second half of the day of Halloween. So they would show The Incredible Shrinking Man and, you know, Attack of the Tarantula or something like that. So I love Halloween.
I think my favorite now, when I was a kid, it definitely was Halloween, but now as a grown-up, is Thanksgiving. Because we got a few people for Thanksgiving. Because it's the time when all the family gets together. People says my children's wives and husbands, so we end up with 30 people at Thanksgiving, and we all cook together. I grew up in a restaurant, so I cook a lot, and I do a podcast, by the way, about food.
Where do we find that podcast, Chris?
At chrissarandon.com. Where you can find all the episodes, and the reason why is because I grew up in a restaurant. My dad owned a restaurant in a small coal mining town in West Virginia, and so I was around food all the time. I'm Greek on both sides, my mom and my dad. So there was a lot of cooking at home, cooking at the restaurant, and so whenever my family gets, and I have a son who's a trained chef who went to the French Culinary Institute. Both my daughters cook, so when we get together, it's around food, and food is Thanksgiving, right? Yeah. Okay, that's the one for me.
Great question. Now, Halloween is my birthday, and I'm Disneyland's official magician. So on Halloween night, I'm performing at Oogie Boogie Fest. So
we have another celebrity up here with us.
Our next panel.
Hi, gents. You've both had such incredible careers, spanned different genres. What is a role that is lesser known or less popular that you have loved that you wish more people knew about?
Good question. That's a good question. Well, I did a musical called It Ain't Nothing But the Blues. And I really loved it because I got to sing B.B. King stuff and rural South, blues, early blues. And that's my favorite music. So I was in heaven the whole time. I got to sing a song called The Hoochie Coochie Man.
What?
I had a good time. So that's the show. Nobody really, because it didn't run that long and it wasn't a huge hit, but I got to do it. I replaced someone, actually, a dear friend of mine. And that's my favorite show that I wish everybody could have gotten to see.
Is there a cast recording of it? Or
there is one, but I'm not on it. Yeah, well, they recorded it before I joined the show, And I tried to get them to do like, 3 tracks while I was there. They were like, forget about it. So there is no recording with me, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't go get it. It's called It Ain't Nothing But the Blues. And the man who did the role originally, who also thought of the show, is a wonderful man who's not with us anymore named Ron Taylor, who was the original voice of the plant in Little Shop of Horrors off Broadway. Yeah, so there you go.
And I think my favorite, and I think I've mentioned this before, but not here, is many years ago I did an adaptation of the Charles Dickens novel, The Tale of Two Cities, for CBS, for Hallmark Hall of Fame. And I got to play both the characters, Sidney Carton and Charles Darnay, and it was such an adventure because I got to work with, first of all, a cast of all-star British actors. We shot it in England and in Paris. And also, I got to play these 2 roles, and there was lots of no CGI in those days, right? I'm talking ancient history. So all the effects were practical things like I had to play scenes with myself, which was really interesting to do. A little confusing, but interesting. And so that's the one that sort of brings to mind when you ask that question right away.
Tale of Two Cities as Jekyll and Hyde. That's good.
Well, not Jekyll and Hyde.
But I mean, you're doing both
right.
roles.
Charles Darnay and Sidney Carton were the names of the characters.
Yeah,
Right.
doing both roles. That's hard to do.
Absolutely.
So, good. Next question from our next side. We have, look, from the movie. Right here, Sally.
So, what's your favorite act you've done?
Favorite role? It's hard to say because I've had the good fortune of playing a lot of really interesting parts, and I love them all, except for one, and I'm not going to mention what it is. So everything but that one. That's a stupid answer, isn't it?
Well, they say, roles are sort of like your children. You shouldn't have a favorite. You probably do, but you shouldn't have a favorite. And I don't really, everyone I've done, and I've been fortunate to do things I really loved and enjoyed, but each one had a different thing to it for my life, at different times in life and different characterizations, things like that. So I don't have a favorite. Each one was my favorite when I was doing it, at least.
I feel the same way.
Good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over at this side.
Hi there, you're both such prolific actors. Do you guys have a preference between theater, film, or voice acting?
I can't speak for Ken. I know we both come from the theater. I started working in the theater when I first started out. I worked a long time in the theater, and I worked in regional theater and in Broadway, and they're different animals. You work in totally different environments. One of the things, it's interesting to me that one of the things that I love about doing Comic-Cons is that when you're in the theater, you have an audience that feeds you, that you interact with, that you synergize with, because you're feeling what's going on in the audience all the time. If you're on a long run of a play, for instance, which both I think Ken and I have done, it's different every night because of the audience. It's not the same when you're doing television and movies. So it's much more of a sort of isolated environment where you're just working with the group of people that are making it, right? So one of the wonderful things about the Comic-Cons is that we get the chance to see what the audience is feeling and experiencing when we talk to you guys. So it's a gift for us. So I don't have a preference. Now particularly, I did for the theater because I get to talk to you guys about the movies.
Pretty much I agree with what Chris is saying. I don't have a preference, but I have what I would call a preferential experience, but it's in each one, it's not one over the other. I love doing film because you can concentrate, you do it, and that's it. You can put your 9,000% into it, and then you move on, which is a different process than theater where you kind of have to, you're in it per performance, but you have to measure yourself through 2 hours and blah, 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 blah. For me, I do concerts, singing, cabaret, things like that. which is yet another kind of expression because it's just my own expression. It's not someone else's writing or something like that. So each one gives me something different to bring to the audience. Film is removed because you do it, then an editor gets their hands on it, and you might end up in the trash can. Who knows? But theater to me is the most immediate because, like Chris said, we get to feel what the audience is experiencing maybe immediately.
Thank you.
Live audience is another cast member, just like how all of you are adding to today's story.
That's right.
Sally, thanks so much.
Probably gonna cry, but thank you for the 30 years, and if you guys can do each a little snippet of part of the movie, or just like the impersonation, or you're not able to.
Because of the strike right now, they're not
Yeah.
allowed to do one
No.
of the lines. I'm so sorry. They can talk about the film, but they can't.
And also the material itself is, I mean, I know a lot of people, and as you should, you may be recording this, and the recordings get out, and they get, they're disseminated, and it gets us in trouble. So we can't.
Big trouble.
Yeah.
And then this one's for Ken. Are you gonna be with Danny Elfman at the end of October?
I'm sorry, what?
Choose.
Are you gonna be there with Danny Elfman at the end of October?
Yes, but you didn't hear it here.
Let's come over here from the Haunted Mansion.
Well, what they do is, just so you know, they do a rollout, they call it. The first thing they put out is, it's gonna happen, and Danny's gonna be there, and then they come back and there's, and the special guest will be, and then they name who's coming. I say that with reservation from the theater. I'm always told, never announce anything until you've signed it. But so far, it looks as though I will be there. So anybody coming to the Hollywood Bowl, October 27th, 8th, and 9th.
Very excited, by the way. I've never been. I want to see one sometime.
Okay, from Disney.
So when Nightmare came out, it wasn't like a huge hit, right? It kind of, it had some success, but it wasn't like the big Disney Renaissance films. But over the years, you have a theme park attraction, you have, you're going to be in this concert, you have all of this culture, and that developed. When was the moment that you guys realized, oh, this is a big deal, like this has become a thing?
I think coming to these events, I would say, just for me.
Like, when did that start? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I knew from the beginning that it was special.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anybody who denies that from the very first time you saw the movie, right?
Yes.
And a little story to tell about the first time I saw it, because they sent me a video cassette, a VHS.
Oh my gosh.
Black and white finished version of the movie with like a time code going across the bottom, and because I was going to do some post work on redoing some lines maybe, and so I was sitting there with a pad, and I've got it in the VHS machine, and I'm playing it, and I'm taking, and suddenly I realized I had 3 small children at the time, that these kids had drifted into the room because they heard this stuff going on, and they were like this.
Aww.
That's when I knew it could have a future, yes. But when it was gonna, it's when this is the phenomenon that really told me that it's happened.
I was doing a show in LA, and one of the stage crew was sort of a goth guy, young guy, and he walked up to me backstage and he said, "Is it true?" And I said, "Is what true?" He says, "Are you really Oogie Boogie, man?"
Oh my gosh.
And I thought maybe I should say no, I said, "Yeah, I did." He goes, "Oh," and he freaked out. He told me the story about how at this club that he went to every week, a goth club, that at the end of the night on Saturday night, excuse me, they would play the Oogie Boogie song. And that's how they knew it was the end of the night. Go, bum, bum, bum. He said, everybody goes crazy, dude, we get crazy. And I had no idea at that time that anybody was listening to it or doing anything with it. So that was my first introduction to the fact that it had become a cult thing. And then it grew from there to what we have here now. But for me, it started with knowing that there was kind of an underground swell thing that was going on, and then I found out how big that was, and on and on and on, till this, which is amazing, still, every time.
Direct from Hogwarts.
Hi, my name is Tanner. I'm absolutely huge fans. I've grown up with you guys. I mean, my wedding was Nightmare Before Christmas themed. I mean, like, it was just a huge thing for me. And, you know, I have 1,000 questions for you, but I have to say, I think the biggest thing for me was being able to share it with my kids. They grew up with it, and I absolutely love watching them watch it. And to be honest, I can't take this question away from my kid who's up here right now, so I want him to be able to ask me questions since he got to grow up with it just like I did.
Go.
So, go ahead, buddy.
How was it to be Jack, and how was it to be Oogie Boogie?
How was it? Well, that's a good question. When you go in to record the voice or the music, in Ken's case, and he'll speak for himself, obviously, but when we were doing scenes where we were speaking, basically you're in a room with the director, and you're going over the lines over and over and over again, but at separate times because they animate to your voice. That is, they do the pictures to your voice, right? So I would go up to San Francisco once every 3 or 4 months and record a scene or 2 or 3. And as Ken mentioned earlier, we never worked together. But I did work one day with Sally, with Catherine O'Hara. And you just go over the lines over and over and over again. I'm sure you are all familiar with the process of how animation works. And that's what it was like for me, was to be in a studio with the director, and he would say, okay, try it this way, try it this way. All right, now, and he would give me line readings sometimes he would just say, give me 5 different readings of this line. And that's how it worked.
Yeah, and it was pretty much the same for me, you know. The only thing I can think of that I can remember saying what it was like was the freedom. Because, you know, when you do theater, you're in a room, you rehearse, you try things, so it's kind of that same process, but this was much more intense and involved and so forth. And getting all of the inflections and flavor that they wanted, particularly into the song, because the song was sort of Oogie's cue as far as what he was outside of the song. So it worked kind of in a reverse way, in a way, for me. And getting to do that and then going, go further, go further. I was like, you really want me to go further than that? They went, yes. I went, yes. So the process was very freeing and very fun. And then whatever that was that they could use is what became the performance.
Thank you for your question.
You'd like to explore and see.
Passover town. I'd like to go to Pesach town. It's a good town.
Yeah. Well, they've all been explored, you know, by all of us. One of the reasons why we identify with the movie, I think, in a lot of ways, is because we know these holidays and we each have a very specific memory about the holiday. I think you guys obviously feel strongly about Halloween, right? And to a certain extent about Christmas. I remember when I was a kid, Easter was a really big deal. I grew up Greek in a Greek household, and that's a big holiday for the Greeks. And the food, again, you know, it's a lot about food in my family.
What was the question?
If you could go to the forest, like any tree of any holiday, which one do you want to go through?
I think the Christmas and Halloween I would pick as well, anyway, because I think they're the most universal. I mean, you go outside, I remember being in England and going, so what are we doing for Halloween? And they were like, we don't celebrate Halloween. And I thought, what do you mean you don't celebrate? They do now, interestingly enough. They do now, and they're huge fans of it. We got to do concerts at Wembley in London, and I was floored by how many people are into Halloween over there now. But Thanksgiving is only an American holiday, you know what I mean? So there's so many different versions of some of them. Christmas and Halloween, if you will, are the two that I think are the most accessible to people now. So, you know, I pick it.
Nobody chooses President's Day. They don't want to go to that land. Let's go over here. Yes, if you would.
Hi, I was just wondering,
Chris, what kind of dog do you think Zero is? And Ken, if Oogie Boogie could have any kind of pet, what do you think he would have?
All right, first of all, what was the
What?
Oh, it's Zero. Oh, Zero is a very unique breed. Ghost dog, right? And Zero, I haven't been around dogs a lot for the last like 30, 40 years. I've never had a dog with Zero's powers, Zero's invisibility, Zero's ability to do any number of things that I wish my dogs could do. So, I don't know. But the answer is unique dog.
I think Oogie would have a lizard. You know, some sort of over-the-top lizard.
But he's also part worm, isn't he?
Oogie?
Yeah. Insects.
Insects, yeah.
I want to know, is Oogie the insects? Is Oogie the shadow? Is Oogie the bad? What is Oogie?
Yes.
All of the above.
That's
All of
the answer.
Like asking Robert Frost, what is snow? Okay. I'll point out, Alvin wanted to be the singing character, so I don't know if we got a choice, but she wanted to know, are you a singer? Do you sing? Do you wish you would have sung the role?
I don't wish that I would have sung the role because I think Danny was brilliant doing singing. First of all, and secondly, I do sing. I've done 4 Broadway musicals. Yes, I do sing.
He sang for the
But
video game.
I don't wish that I was Jack's singing voice because Danny's incomparable. Yeah.
So they were only casting for the acting role because Danny wanted to be the singer. Over here, please, if you would. You're up at the...
He's both very powerful. He feels that he's very powerful because he is the Pumpkin King. But at the same time, he's very insecure. That is, he doesn't really feel strongly about his ability to make decisions and to do things. He's constantly asking questions. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people identify with the character, is because he's us. He's what people feel in general kind of a lot of the time. You know, where is my place in the world? What's my meaning? But he finds it, and it's kind of like, you know, the story of the Wizard of Oz. He's been in Kansas all the time, right? Yeah. He's been in Halloween Town, and that's where he belongs. Because he's the Pumpkin King!
Yeah! Good. Okay. Over.
That you've seen so many times that you constantly find yourselves like returning to with your lives.
Oh gosh, there's so many. A lot of mine are sort of classics of the great Hollywood kind of, catalog. A lot of them from the 30s, 40s, 50s. How Green Was My Valley, I could watch 50 times. It's a wonderful movie, by the way. And Roddy McDowell from Fright Night was in that as a little boy, and was wonderful in the movie. Any John Ford movie, The Searchers, How Green Was My Valley, John Ford. And then there's some great, to me, some great horror movies that I love, including the original Nosferatu. There's a wonderful movie called Don't Look Now. It's a Nicholas Roeg movie that's scary as hell. Supernatural movie. And then that great Eastern European version of Let the Right One In. I can watch that over and over again. I have it in a drawer in my house. Yeah.
Wizard of Oz, that I've watched since I was a child.
Yeah.
It used to come on, well, you probably don't remember, when it came on television once a year, at Easter, usually. So there's Wizard of Oz, The Exorcist. Yes, I am that kid, and I love The Exorcist. And there's another movie called The Haunting.
Yes.
That I love. It's taken from the Shirley Jackson novel, The Haunting of Hill House.
Yep.
They've done a remake, man, but the original one was really amazing. Sorry? Black and White, Julie Harris, Claire Bloom, all kinds of people. But you never see anything. That's what makes it so compelling. And you really get caught up in the idea of, is it in her head, or is it just that they don't see? Because there's some things that happen. I'm advertising it for Halloween. If you haven't seen it, treat yourself.
To The Haunting, the original black and white.
Yes.
I always want to take a moment, anyone with accessibility issues that can't get up to the microphone but has a burning opinion on that costume.
I have no opinion because I have not seen it. But I have just finished recording a new stage production, live stage production that they're going to do at Disneyland, or not Disneyland, in Hollywood, at some theater, anyway, with a live theater with a big jack puppet, like, 10, 15 feet tall, and then with human characters in the play. I don't know what the play is about, but I do know that they're doing a live action version. So that's the only thing I have an opinion about it. It seems like it's fascinating.
Ken, what do you think?
I'm gonna pick his soul.
I love the three Draculas, I call them. Those three little guys who sing sort of in a minor key and they just sort of show up. I love them. Every time they come on, it's just like, they're here, there they are.
All right.
I think he's probably still hopping around somewhere. I'm not sure where, but...
If you haven't received any eggs at your house in 30 years, we're sorry.
That question, because when my kids were growing up, of course, they wanted to dress up for Halloween and they wanted to go out with their parents, and I always would say, I'm sorry, I'm not dressing up. And they would wonder why, and I said, because I dress up for a living. Right? So it's not like it's a special event for me. So I don't really have a fantasy of who I would dress up as, quite frankly. I do remember once my ex-wife asked me to go to a Halloween party with her, and I dressed up as Elvis. But that was a long time ago when I looked more like Elvis.
Next question, let's come to the other side in the green checkered pattern.
Hi, I was wondering how it was to work together.
Well, we actually never got to work together.
Never did.
Isn't that interesting? I recorded alone with no one other than the director and the musical director. But Chris and I never worked together at all. Can you believe that?
We've really actually gotten to know each other really well doing these cons, and we just have a great time together. Ken is the best.
Chris is the best.
Great question. You have something growing out of the side of you, miss.
Oh no, not another one.
My name is Mary, and what is your favorite holiday?
Well, my favorite holiday is Halloween. And it really is. I'm not just saying that because when I was a kid, I lived for Halloween, probably because I got to dress up. And you got candy, you got cake. And at my grade school, they always showed a movie on like the second half of the day of Halloween. So they would show The Incredible Shrinking Man and, Attack of the Tarantula or something like that. So I love Halloween.
I think my favorite now, when I was a kid, it definitely was Halloween, but now as a grown-up, it's Thanksgiving, because we got a few people for Thanksgiving, because it's the time when all the family gets together. People